or other bits of helpful insights and information or experiences or anything? We're not in a rush, right?
No.
Yeah?
Nope.
Yeah, so yes,
I really don't know that much. I'm just kind of curious about how she lives. So is she really apart from the world? I mean, she didn't have...
Amherst was a small town.
Right.
And she didn't leave it very often. She did leave it to go to Boston a couple of times.
I mean, within her community, the house.
After a certain point, she did not leave, as she puts it, I do not leave my father's house for any house or town. So at one point, she did not leave the house. I think she would sneak over to see Sue next door. And we're not sure, yes, Was there something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was wondering what type of man was her father? Do you know if he was controlling?
Yeah, let's come back to that. Both really important questions.
Right.
She has been called, do you say agoraphobic or agoraphobic? Which do you say? Either is okay? Okay, well, she was.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
And the thinking is, there's some thinking that she had problems with her eyes. She had gone to Boston. She may have had a thyroid condition that causes difficulty with light or light sensitivity. We're not totally sure. It's kind of hard, but she was a recluse. It's true that she didn't get out and she didn't want to see everybody. There are certain people who she would see and certain people she wouldn't, like Mabel Lewis she didn't see.
And how old was she when she died?
She was born in 1830, so I think, 56?
56.
Yeah. And I think it was some sort of kidney thing.
Kidney disease. I don't know
Kidney-
any
yeah,
more
right.
about it than that.
Right. It might have been Bright's disease. Yes, I think so. Yeah. But they weren't sure. But it's true but the thing is, so many people came to the house, so it wasn't as if she was totally cut off from the world. And the family got all the newspapers and the magazines at the time, and the father was very politically connected. The father, great question. Yes. Very patriarchal, very stern, very controlling. Absolutely. Yes. Very much of his time. There's one hilarious letter of Dickens. Dickens's letters are hilarious at times. One of them where she talks about father being upset about Father Christmas and other prowling gentlemen. And we forget that at that time, Christmas was still controversial. Much of the Christian community did not thought it was a pagan celebration, which we won't go there. But her father was very stern and very strict. Emily and Austin, who was her great buddy, the two of them, her brother. Vinnie did not have to think. She said Emily had that to do, but Vinnie was very pretty and very social, and she loved social life, and she did well at housework, and she really didn't care about books, okay? But Austin did care about books a lot, and he went off to college, but whenever he was home and before he went to college, he and Dickinson would hole up in the kitchen, hiding the books by the naughty writers they wanted to read, like novels by Nathaniel Hawthorne, that their father would have disapproved of. So that's a great question about the father. Yes, there's a real sense there of rebelling against him.
And I was also wondering, was he aware of her writing poems?
I don't think so.
Oh,
I don't think the father was. No.
What time?
Yes, what a great way to put it, and that's a lot of what I think we see in the poem. We've got these bombs and these volcanoes, kind of let me out kind of cries that we see in the poem. No, the father and mother, and I'm not sure there's one letter where she wrote to Austin, and he had written back about something he was trying to write, and I forget her language, but she said something to Austin about, wait a minute, I'm the poet in this family.
But an extraordinary amount of tension, because the father must have tried to marry her off too.
I don't know that he did.
Really?
I don't know that he did. I don't think he was that involved in that area. Now, she did have a boyfriend, someone she cared very, very much about, who was killed in the Civil War. One of the best books on Dickinson that came out in the 80s was by Shira Wolosky, called Emily Dickinson, A Voice of War. And what Wolosky does is point out how frequently Dickinson uses words like bullets and cannons and bombs, uses war imagery. I mean, most of those poems are written between 1861 and 1865. I think those dates resonate for us. Civil War, and she had most of the boys she knew, went off to fight. Many of them didn't come back, like the boys she cared deeply about. And so it was horrendously affecting, even for people in Amherst, Massachusetts. She was very aware. And as I said, they got all the newspapers and all the magazines. So, yeah. What else? What
Is
else?
there any
Yeah.
evidence, like, heirs often love to censor, especially if they're family literary heirs. Is there any evidence that they suppressed any of her poems or her correspondence
Interesting
or
question.
destroyed it?
Not that we know of. Not that we, and we have Vinnie to thank for that. We really have Vinnie to thank for that. And most, not all of her friends kept her letters. She would, see, the thing is, she's so current. As I was saying, with the punctuation marks, I mean, as if she anticipated emoticons, and she's so current in that she's kind of multi-genre and mixed genre, so that within her letters, she would often include poems. And then maybe that poem would change when she put it in fascicle. So luckily, many of her friends kept the letters she sent them, and we're lucky in that. Not all of them, but many of them. So her letters take up 3 giant volumes, edited by Thomas Johnson again, a man for whom we are all grateful. Yeah. Yes.
What do you think of the scholarship lately that theorizes she may have been elected?
I think there could be some validity to that. That could, yeah. I don't know. But
If you read the poems, the imagery in many of the poems, especially the volcanoes,
right,
the suddenness
right.
of the malady that's hiding behind
Right.
the
It does make sense.
It would explain one of the reasons why she didn't want to go out.
It really could. It really could. That sort of fear of having a seizure when you go. It really could. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Was there any connection to her awareness of Whitman? Walt Whitman?
Oh, yeah.
Was any feelings about him? It's a very different kind of portrait.
I read him and found him disgusting.
Disgraceful.
Disgusting. You can imagine, Dickinson letting it all hang out and, soft tickling genitals. I mean, he's letting it all hang out in a very different way from the way, it's so interesting that these 2 poets, who were so radical for their time, have become our standard bearers. I mean, they are the, do you write like Dickinson? Do you like Whitman? I mean,
Touchstone of an era.
Yeah, and yet so absolutely
the ones that are
different.
still worth reading.
Yeah.
They really are. They really are. Whitman too, absolutely. But so totally different. But yet, when you think about it, both of them going against the norm, Whitman breaking with the lines and end rhyme, those long lines, and all that use of anaphora, the repetition of initial sounds, and the long the catalogs, the lists, just as different from Dickinson with her compression as you could get. But no, she didn't go there. Hawthorne, yes, Whitman, no. Yes,
I think you said she was a reader. Was she an avid
Oh, yes.
reader? And
Was
did that
she what?
influence her?
Was she what?
A reader.
Yeah.
Was she an avid reader? And
Oh,
what
yes.
influenced her poems?
Oh, she was an avid reader. And there are lots of references. She adored the Brownings. She adored Keats. She read Milton. And she was lucky enough to get to go to school. She did because she was so bright. Her parents did send her to what is now Mount Holyoke. Mount Holyoke Seminary, which was started by Mary Lyon, a fierce, amazing feminist at that time, and really felt that girls deserved to know Latin and Greek and to be able to learn as much as their brothers. So she went to Mount Holyoke for a year. It might have been even less. Her father missed her baking, missed her bread, and they brought her home. But there's more to the story, because Mary Lyon was also ferociously religious. And so there were assemblies I forget how often, every week or regularly, and the girls would be asked to stand or sit, oh dear, I'm forgetting, either they're sitting and they're asked to stand or standing asked to sit, if they've been saved. And so at the beginning of the year, many girls hadn't been saved, or still either standing or sitting, and are very obvious, and they're to work on being saved. And at the end of the term, there was only one person left standing or sitting, and you know who that was. Dickinson never quite she was never saved. And so she left, and you sort of get that she's terribly homesick. Her letters at that time indicated enormous homesickness. But she had a very good education. Even in Amherst, she did go to the Amherst school and did learn her Latin and Greek, and then became a very avid reader on her own.
And did what she read influence her poetry? Do we see evidence of it?
We do. She loved the Brontes, and there's a poem where she talks about Charlotte Bronte, and the poem I read about Barrett Browning, and yeah. So
And
there are references.
And there's lots of poems that mention just a word or a phrase or something. It's obvious that it comes from a book because she's referring to something. She loves to refer to distant places,
Yes.
which as far as I can tell don't matter, except that they're way far from Amherst. As far as I can tell.
Right,
Some
right.
of them, they might make a difference
Right.
where it is, but most of them, it's just somewhere really far from here.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Or like her use of Vesuvius.
Oh,
Vesuvius
yeah.
being at home. There's a Vesuvius right at home. And when she writes about Italy, often we do have this sort of piggybacking off of what you were saying. Often when she writes about Italy, we have a sense that she's referring to the Brownings. You know,
Or Hawthorne.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe Hawthorne, or could be, yeah.
Or maybe even Goethe.
Could be, yeah. Could be. Yes, uh-huh.
Can you elaborate on the relationship between Emily and T.W. Higginson, or expand upon his role in her life? Because I've heard him referred to as a mentor, a precursor, and now, from what I heard earlier in your talk, a bit vilified, a villain and sort of censoring her.
Well, he and Mabel really did change the poems radically. I mean, they really did. I mean, he had, again, I have to emphasize that he was way ahead of his time and very influential in writing about education for women and other topics of the time. He was very forward-thinking in many ways. And he had his ideas of what poetry ought to be. And poetry should have end rhyme and should, be more regular and should use periods and semicolons and commas and not capitalize in weird places. So he did help Mabel Loomis Todd regularize the poems. And he also, I think from what I know, she was the guiding hand in that, but he maybe had more of a role in helping Dickinson's their edition get out there, get published. So if it hadn't been for Higginson, we probably wouldn't have Dickinson. So yes, but at the same time, he had his notions of what a poem ought to look like. And of course, I mean, we all do. I mean, I do too now, I have to say. But
That's what happens when you die and an editor gets a hold of your work, right?
yeah. But who were you saying?
Oh, I was, that's
Yeah.
kind of my question, because was that his way of advancing her cause then, and women's rights?
Yeah, I think it was. He agreed with Mabel that these poems should be published. And so that's, to the good and to his credit. I'm not saying that he was a terrible guy at all, but I am saying that he and Mabel got the poems out there to begin with, so Thomas Johnson might never have found them if they hadn't have done those editions. However, they also really did put those poems in corsets.
Was he also the one that was in the Civil War? Was he a colonel or general or something?
Dave, I forget.
What?
Anybody know? I forget. Who knows? Yeah?
Negro Richmond during the Civil War.
The
What did you
Massachusetts.
say?
Say it louder. Say it louder so Dave can
He
hear.
was the head of an African-American regiment.
The Massachusetts.
Yeah.
what
I
is
think
it?
that was something
He
that
was,
he...
yeah, thank you. He was way ahead of his time.
The anecdote that I remember
Uh-huh.
with regard to him is that when he went to see her and they would talk, she totally wore him out. Here was this military man who couldn't keep up with her.
That-
Is that-
Absolutely.
is that,
Absolutely. He wrote his wife, and I forget his word, but they're very funny. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Just exhausted after being with Emily Friend, yeah. She was intense. Yes. On my, yes. Vesuvius at home, yeah.
What is it?
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you stand a poet at the white heat or something
Yes,
like that?
yes, what is it? Dare you see a, who has Sir Dickinson with it?
I-
First line, maybe we can find it. Dare you see a
First
soul at the white heat? Yeah, yeah.
Dare starting with a D?
I think so. Dare you, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Dare you see a soul at the white heat? Let's read it, yeah.
365.
Yeah. Yeah, she was at the white heat.
Dare you see a soul at the white heat, then crouch within the door. Red is the fire's common tint, but when the vivid ore has vanquished flame's conditions, it quivers from the forge without a color, but the light of unanointed blaze. Least village has its blacksmith, whose anvil's even ring stands symbol for the finer forge that soundless tugs within, refining its impatient ores with hammer and with blaze until the designated light repudiate the forge.
The soundless forge. The soundless forge is great.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Isn't it great? Yes. Yes. Yeah, uh-huh.
I was just wondering today if we met Emily, you know, I'm just wondering, was she socially awkward? You think?
What do you think?
I don't think she could be that socially awkward if her father is a congressman.
I know, I know. She did it. She did the social thing. She did the Sunday, dinners. She did them.
But with her personality being so stifled and maybe
Yeah.
whatever. The reason I'm asking is because there's been a lot of speculation of people from the past as to whether today we would say they were on the autism spectrum.
They were on the what?
Autism spectrum.
Oh.
Her letters are very awkward.
That's what I'm thinking.
Her what?
Her letters are very awkward.
She might.
Her writing too.
You call them awkward? Really?
Yeah, the parts,
Wow.
the interstitial parts that are between the actual poetry,
Huh.
they're awkward. And then
Huh.
it's as if the poetry flies, but the part where she's trying to
Huh.
actually be a normal person and talk is, it's like she feels okay when the poetry is where she should be, and when she tries to do something else, it's just like, I don't belong here.
I would put it differently about the letter.
There was a wonderful show about 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Adele Amherst.
Yes.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And researched. I think if you haven't seen it, even when you've been watching it, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
it was here too, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the play.
And
right.
the actress that did it, Helen, that's right, and
Uh-huh.
it was fabulous. But she played it very intense, lots of projection, and in the question period afterwards, somebody said, "Well, was she really manic?" Somebody thought that the actress was presenting her as having, as having a bipolar disorder, which that didn't seem right to me, but there's a lot of intensity there.
I don't find the letters the way you do. I find them very much geared toward whoever she's writing. She had a number of really close friends, and the closeness was mainly expressed through the correspondence, although they did visit occasionally. And I find them more like maybe at times in a kind of shorthand, perhaps. What, Cyrus?
I was thinking the same thing. It's like shorthand.
Yes.
And speaking in a coded way.
Yes.
And the parts
Exactly.
that seem poetic, those seem
Yeah.
natural.
Yeah.
And then the parts where she's not, it looks like she tries to break out of the poetic and be just like a normal person, and it's not working.
Huh.
I wonder if that's the issue, that the letters also deliberately crafted
they seem more like poetry than you'd expect them to be.